You're only inspiration and you're only meaning. You must think that all I do is spend my time making pretty pictures of you. You can fall when I will be flying, but I'll be falling over just by having you in my life. Kicking up a ball inside the ball.
Father, we thank you for this wonderful weather. Please look down upon us today, gathered here for the graduation of the seniors of 1987. We ask your blessing on their parents and teachers who have been instrumental in their learning. We ask your blessing on the graduates, that the lessons they have been taught here at Laconia High School will give them a thirst for lifelong learning. Give them a sense of stewardship of their knowledge, that it will not only help them personally in their earthly pilgrimage, but that it will enable them to be of assistance to those whom they meet along life's way. We ask all of these blessings through Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen. Amen, amen, amen. Sing it over. Amen, 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 amen.
Stay standing to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You can sit now. I would like to welcome you all, school board members, graduate, speaker, ministers, members of the class of 1987, moms, dads, friends, and relatives to Laconia High School's 109th commencement exercises. Tonight's ceremony marks the beginning of 170 separate and very special journeys throughout life. We thank all of you for joining us in the celebration. I would like to now introduce our guests sitting here on the stage. Start with Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Poole, Laconia School Board Chairman, Mr. Dexter, members of Laconia School Board, Mr. Wilson, Mr. McLaughlin, Mrs. Reever, Mrs. Squires, and my mom, Mrs. Shumway. Principal of Laconia High School, Mr. St. Lawrence. Assistant Principal of Laconia High School, Mr. Witham. Our commencement speaker, Mr. Fred Newman. And our ministers, Reverend Griffin and Reverend Shippey. Now, with great pride on behalf of the class of 1987, I would like to introduce to you Lisa Routhier, our class valedictorian. Parents, teachers, friends, and especially class of 1987. Hi. How do you guys feel right now? Enthusiasm. Okay. The first thing I want to say this evening is how proud I am to be up here talking to you. At first, I really dreaded this moment. But now I realize that not many people get an opportunity like this to share their thoughts and feelings. I still have a hard time believing that I made it to where I am right now. Even just 4 years ago, when we used to look at the seniors with respect and fear and envy, none of us probably believed we would ever be in their shoes. Well, here we are today. The seniors of 1987. And I think the hardest part of all to get through was when we were closest to our goal, the fourth quarter of this year. Let's face it, when you're a fourth quarter senior, it's hard to care about much of anything except graduating. Personally, I can't take all the credit for being in this position. Obviously, my teachers had a lot to do with it, but a lot of the credit also goes to my parents. And I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us when I say this. I mean, they must have done something right to get us all here. Of course, there are some things we just had no control over. Things we received through heredity, and this could be good or bad, depending. But, at least for me, there are also all of the years since I've been in school when they've always been there, giving me their support. Sometimes I felt like they cared more about what I was doing than I did, but that's okay too. So I just want to say thanks to my mom and dad, and to everyone else's parents, because we couldn't have done it without you. This also happens to be my parents' 38th wedding anniversary, so Mom and Dad, happy anniversary. All of us graduating here tonight are in the same boat. During this last year of high school, we've all had to make important decisions about our future. For many of us, the decision was a hard one. Whether we decided to work or go to college, we have to take advantage of everything either has to offer. We have to use our successes as stepping stones and grow also from our failures. Above all, we have to be happy at what we're doing, because that's the only way that we'll do it well. I want to wish everyone the best of luck at whatever you decided to do. Probably the most important thing I want to talk about tonight, on our last night together as a class, is friendship. I think a lot of times we take our friends for granted. I know that in the last week, especially, I've taken a much closer look at my friendships, and I realize how lucky I am. I'm sure this is true for all of us here. You have to love your friends and respect them too. By respect, I mean accept the way they are and whatever they strive to become. Support them in good times, but especially in bad, because that's when they need it the most. It's going to be hard leaving all of my friends when I go away this fall. Even though I know I'll make new ones, just as we all will, no one can ever fill that space in my heart that all of you have had from the beginning. Tonight, when we're all on the cruise together, our friendships will seem more precious than ever. Let's make the most of it. I'd like to close with a quote from Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts. These years we've shared in school are just one of the many parts of our lives. This is just the beginning. Even though each one of us has had a very different part, we have all stayed together as a class, bonded by hope and by love. Our class song summarizes it best. Our last 12 years were just a stepping stone. Don't be sad now, it's just time to go. I want to thank the class of 1987 for playing their parts so well and for being a friend. Thank you.
On behalf of Laconia High School, I want to welcome the parents and friends and relatives. And to the class of 1987, I want to express the pride, the hopes, and the dreams that we have for you, the faculty and staff of Laconia High School, for your future years. Each year at this time, graduation, we only give 2 awards, and we honor the Valedictorian and the Salutatorian with bowls. I'd like to have Brian Young please come up. and Lisa Routhier.
The speaker for this year's graduation is again provided by the generous support of the Putnam Fund. Fred Newman is known both for his voice and for his face. He has appeared on TV as the host of Nickelodeon's Livewire. He has appeared peddling Breyer's ice cream. He has shared the stage with David Letterman and Merv Griffin and has appeared on PM Magazine and Our Magazine. His voice, though, has made him famous as well. It has put him on Prairie Home Companion and as a voice in Steven Spielberg's Gremlin movie. Also in one of Mel Brooks' movies. He is the voice now of a newly released movie. He's the voice of Harry in the new movie Harry and the Hendersons. He now also writes for Jim Henderson's Muppets. He was our 1985 graduation speaker, so this appearance could be considered to be a rerun.
He's back. He's back to give the graduation speech. That's my theme song, ladies and gentlemen. I think y'all, you have to have a theme song, don't you think? No, it's really a pleasure to be here, but I cannot believe, what would possess you to invite me back again? Maybe, David Ray, maybe after transgressions in the past? I don't know. I don't know what happened, why you deserve it, but I asked Rose Pucci. I said, Rose, do you remember anything? She said she was in the band and she had heard the speech 2 years ago. I said, do you remember what I spoke about? She said, no, not really. And she said, oh, I do remember you did something with a rubber band. So, by popular request, this is the rerun. This is what I did with a rubber band to my teacher. You put the rubber band on, pull it up like this, and then you speak to the teacher. Let's see if it's going to work. Uh-oh, it's not going to work. Well, see, it doesn't work when you try to do it again. You know, it worked one time. It usually goes up sort of like this. Let's see if it's working. No, it's not working. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened here. Well, this year, we're in the great outdoors, which is great. I'm just hoping to know lawn sprinklers around the automatic sprinklers. I always read those about graduations that turn into graduation from hell because of the sprinklers. I think did anybody bring a Frisbee? Got a Frisbee here? We should really get a game of touch football up. You know, the shirts over this side, the skins on this side. Oh, by the way, are you wearing clothes under those robes? I don't know. I think there's probably only one graduation speech that goes around to all speakers. You know, it's the one that goes, as you stand on the great threshold of life, we challenge you know. We've heard that one before. What I'll do today probably is just ramble a bit and just see what we kick up, okay? It is nice to be here. I was put up last night by the Puccis at the Grandview Hotel, which is wonderful. Lives up to its name, and it was quite a stunning sight to see the lake this morning at dawn. And driving up here, I love New Hampshire. I noticed yet again, just like I did 2 years ago, the license plate that have your state motto, the most severe state motto there is. It sounds like Eddie Murphy made that up, right? You know, live free or die, man. You should have the after it, you know. And driving around today, I was taken yet again by the number of factory outlets you have in this state. It should be the factory outlet state. I mean, I'm going to drive home with a trunk load of shoes, I tell you that. You know. In fact, almost all the stores, it's not a store, it's a factory outlet. Like McDonald's, hamburger, french fry factory outlet is what it's got on the sign, you know. But this is the real America. This is, you can tell it's got the kids on bicycles and the sound of lawnmowers and flags flying around. And coming from New York City, that's very refreshing to see. You don't see that a lot around the city. You also have, one thing I noticed, Last time I was here, this is, you know it's real America because ladies wear these things. You know what I'm talking about? Only in, sort of New Hampshire and I grew up in Georgia, they wear these things in Georgia too. That's real America right there, these things. These people in the center seats, let's talk about them for a second, shall we? These are the people who are family and friends, and it's a real tribute to you that these people have shown up. Because a lot of these graduations can be pretty boring, and it's a tribute. The fathers out there are whispered to the wives, wake me up when they get to the W's, will you, hon? Yeah, and that father is the same father that said things like, what do you mean, pay you? I give you room and board, He's here, he's showing up. Your mother's here. She's the one that told you to sit up straight all those years, and she's thinking it right now. She's eyeing you, drawing a bead in your eye. But she would sit up straight. She's so attractive when she sits up straight. She's the same mother that said those things like, who's got the good scissors? Who has got the good scissors? Or flawless logic like, I'm cold, put on your coat. That's the mothers. Then, and mothers are also very trigger happy. You notice this little group over here with the cameras, that they came down here. The mothers, did you take pictures in every conceivable position with your dog even in those outfits today? Did you do that? And wait till you get up on stage, you can hear, mothers. Oh, they're great. Okay, your brother's probably here. He'd much rather be at home watching something like Gilligan's Island, but he showed up too. I think the people I feel sorry for are the uncles that showed up. You don't have to raise your hand because I know you're asleep right now. The uncles they're the sort of unsung heroes of the family. They're the guys that sit back and they just went through the McDonald's drive-thru before they came here. They sort of sit back and suck their teeth, Only uncles do that. So they're sitting out there. Thank you, uncles, for showing up for this event. Now, this is the sort of center section going on here. Also, we have among them sprinkled in there the teachers. Now, I talked a little bit last time about teachers. I'd like to sort of go over that again if I could. Teachers are weird. We know that. Teachers are very weird people. To stand there in front of you and allegedly teach you and entertain you and enlighten you, they're weird people. There's no question about it. And I think if you think about it, you'll know what I'm saying. They've always been larger than life, sometimes literally, sometimes just physically. Like that PE teacher. I don't know who your PE teacher is, but I know that you've probably never met anyone quite like that before in your life. Am I right? They're very concerned about your socks and the uniform you're wearing and that sort of thing. Boy, wear your socks. Or the English teachers. I've always found that they have serious nerdistic tendencies. They're wonderful people, and I know David Ray personally, but I think he falls into that category. I don't know. The teachers taught me a lot, though. First thing, they teach you that lesson about sarcasm. It's the first time you've ever seen anyone smile and yell at you at the same time, where they go, if you say that again, we're going to all stay in after class. They can do that, smile and be sarcastic at the same time. They also use words like you'd never hear anywhere else. Like those words like, your neighbor. Like, don't look on your neighbor's paper. You'd never hear anyone else. Your neighbor. Don't talk to your neighbor during this. I remember the thing that I loved is you'll be in the back of the room and you're talking back there, and suddenly the class goes absolutely quiet, and you look up, the teacher's like this, tapping your foot saying, we're waiting. We're waiting. And then she or he says something that they all love to say because they know there's no answer to this question is, would you like to share that with the rest of the class? Remember that? Yeah. And sure, I'd like to bring up my personal things and lay them out here in front of the rest of the class. Right? There's always been that love-hate relationship I've had with teachers. They've been, it hasn't been pleasant, as you can imagine, being a comedian. There were people who sat in the front of the class who knew all the answers. They're like this. They waggle their hands. Do you have some hand wagglers among you? The class. And then you have the people sit in the back, and it's like they're back there going, mm-hmm. Well, I was sort of 3/4 of the way back, and I
I would do things like, I talked a little bit about it. Like I remember in grammar school, I put Crayolas in every opening of my face, and I'd go up to the teacher and go, "Hi, Mrs. Johnson," this kind of thing. But I think my real specialty was horns and honks and sound effects that I would do behind the teacher's back. And you know we have some musical accompaniment. It's very nice, the bells. That I would do. The kind of teacher I'm talking about is the one in grammar school that's like, she's about the size of a Buick. You remember? Because if you're like 6 years old, you remember those teachers, right? They're huge. Even if they're petite, they're huge to you because you're only this big, right? So this is huge woman, like a pylon in the front of the class. Face like a Motorola television set. You know, and in the class picture, she's the entire back row. All right. This teacher, and the other thing they have is static cling. Always the slip is up in the back, you know, this one. While she's writing on the board like this, and I would do what I'd love to do. I start out with a horns or honks like that, dog barks, or like this, you know, good. I could do it with my mouth closed, so I go. You know. And what happens is a strange kind of physics takes over. The teacher who's writing on the board has the glasses on the little lanyard, you know those things? First of all comes the head. You do something like a, right? First comes the head, like this, right? And then I do something. Now this is when you got the entire, first would go the head, then comes the body. Now comes the glasses. You know, and then the whole thing takes like, maybe 30 seconds to settle. And if you're like 10, 15 years old, you know, this is the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life. You've never seen anything quite like it. You probably won't. Again, that's probably the hardest you'll ever laugh. It's that sort of laugh where you're, you know. Yeah, that's my relationship with teachers, as I say, was tenuous. I was actually lifted by my bottom lip and escorted from class, which is probably the least dignified way to leave a classroom. But teachers are different. They are passionate, and that's the reason they're teachers. They may be passionate over something like dangling participles or quadratic equations or binary numbers or whatever it is, but they're passionate about something. And that somehow reflects and inflames us as students. There are those teachers, I'm sure, that you had everything from crushes on. You remember your crush on your teacher? You had to have a teacher that you had a crush on. You have teachers, male, female. You always had teachers with crushes on. There are teachers that you connected with in some way. They saw something in you, and you saw something in them that you respected and liked, and they encouraged it in you. They brought that out in you. Teachers, the reason I'm here is that there was a teacher in my English class with serious nerdistic tendencies who saw something in me, encouraged me to write poems about cockroaches or whatever I was writing poems about. And he said, try something different, try that. And I did. And this particular teacher, Mrs. Love, showed me there was something else besides what I'd just been thinking about. There's a whole different world out there, and that's what teachers, their weirdness can do for students. So we have teachers here. Right now, you are at the top of the pyramid, very top of the pyramid. And right here in the center section, all these people out here are your base, your support. They're the people who put you in these choir robes today. They really are the reason, as we were speaking about earlier, they are the reason we are here. Teachers, parents, and friends. Now let's talk about you a little bit. Now, we are all here to honor you. And I've heard from a lot of different people that you're a very special class. That this is a class that is very caring and loving, and friendship does indeed seem to be one of the main themes of your class. And that's to be saluted, I think. I think what things that are going through your mind right now is that some of you are really going to be embarrassed because they're going to announce your middle name, right? You know, mine was Rufus, and I was just dreading it, you know, because I could hear the laughter, the titters of laughter would go up. Several of you thinking that the hat you're wearing, really does blow your hairdo, right? And it's hard to get those little bangs to go up over the thing, you know. It takes a lot. Mom, how does it look? Do you still have your corsage in the freezer? I mean, the refrigerator? Your wrist corsage for the prom? Do you have those? Anyone save those? I looked at the annual and I saw the. Did any of you get the big purple-throated orchid? The one that looks like it eats meat? For your, I love those. The guys you're probably really exhausted from spray painting class of '87 all over buildings around town. You doing any of that? No? Good. Good. Well, you also, on all our minds now is the Celtics game.
The Celtics game tonight, yes.
Okay. Yeah. But there are a lot of feelings. You've got these feelings going through you that it's a mixture of things. There's happiness, and there's pride, tinged with sadness, and probably a little scared too. Because you know one thing that people may or may not have told you, but things will never be the same again. What you've been through will never be the same again. And that's the only promise I'll make to you tonight. The only promise that we can make to you is that they will never be the same. It's interesting, when I spoke here in 1985, it was very different. Things were different. Think back just 2 years ago. For me, I had a little baby, 7.5 months old now, and I know how they filmed Godzilla movies. They put a baby who's tired inside a rubber outfit. I'm learning about that part of life that a lot of you out there already know about. That's what's happened to me. But in society, the things I talked about last time were teenage pregnancy. I mentioned to you last time that if you got 5 of you women together, statistically that 1 of you would be pregnant and unmarried within a year. That it was, at that particular time, teenage pregnancy was really out of control. It seemed to have got to somehow abated a bit now. It's still a problem in America, but it has abated a bit. But that's also because a new kind of conservatism has swept through the heartland of America. Some of it, things like herpes was sort of the butt of jokes and sort of was in the headlines 2 years ago, and AIDS was just an isolated medical phenomenon. It's changing things dramatically now, just 2 years later. Ronald Reagan was enjoying the highest popularity of any peacetime president, and we see him now faltering a bit, embroiled in an inquiry that we haven't seen since Watergate. Or think about Gary Hart. 2 years ago, he was a leading candidate. Well, 2 months ago, he was a leading candidate. And you see how quickly things change, and in ways that none of us out here would have ever predicted. And it calls into question not only politics, but the role of the media. Things are changing so much now. Of course, anyway, I think about America's fun couple, Jim and Tammy Baker. 2 years ago, 7 million people a day watched them on television, sent their checks to them on television, and how different things are for them. This past year, television networks who had been the fat cats of America, they had never even thought of, you think about losing money. They lost money last year. That's very significant. That means that television is changing. You're watching different things. You're watching probably VCRs, you're watching cable, you're doing different things with your time that weren't here 2 years ago. I hope you don't take off with this wind here. I can see you holding onto your hats. Oh, that's what the tassels are for. I never knew what the tassels were for. We should lash you guys down. Yeah. Also, right now, the country is about to defend another country's ships in the Middle East against a country that really doesn't play by the same rules that we play. I mean, it's hard to. These are people we're dealing with. Are people who say, kill me, I want to die. And in war traditionally they don't want to die. See, and you don't either, so you negotiate it out, right? This is a whole. The rules are all changing. It's very different now. Even New Hampshire, the state is changing. The politics. You look around, Laconia has changed a lot. You have new windows on your school since I was here last. Everything is changing. The economics of the state are changing. Industries are dying and new industries are being reborn. I have said this before, but never before to a graduating class that's meant more, is that, as I said, these rules are changing in politics, media, business, religion, government, and even sex. Now, I'm not trying to scare you. What I want to say is that it's so unbelievably exciting. We don't know what's going to happen. It's very exciting that these people in the center section, they lateraled to you a very slippery football. And they can't tell you exactly which way to run with it, or even how to hold on to it exactly, because the rules have changed a little bit. But they have prepared you. You wouldn't be sitting here if these people out here had not prepared you, and had you not done your homework in the past. You really do represent America's best. The thing I want to leave you with here are that to make it through these changing times, you've got to have the right attitude. Attitude is what's so important. And in times of change, there are tremendous opportunities to people with the right attitude. The first of these is that you've got to take risk. Right now, you have to take risk. You can't just do things without thinking about it. You've got to take risk and realize, as I said when I was here before, there's no such thing as failure. That we tend to be obsessed as Americans with success. But you realize that most of you statistically won't know really what you're going to do until you're 25. You really begin to settle into a career at about 25. Some of you will go right into vocational school, some of you will go to college. But either way, even if you go into plumbing, you may go into another field later on. You tend to change more than your parents did before you. There are two kinds of planners. They're the stars and the fish. The stars are those people who maybe you know these people in your class who knew exactly at age 6 that they wanted to be a doctor or a policeman or go into their father's business. I hated those people. I hated them because they knew what they wanted to do. It seemed so clear to them. I didn't. I was a fish. The fish are the people who swim upstream. They don't know exactly where they're going, but they know they're moving and changing, and they don't know what's around the corner. Most of you will fall into that category. So the next few years will be your time to swim and change and learn. You cannot fail. It is impossible to fail when you're in your position. You have a great support group behind you. You can't fail as long as you're exploring and learning. What that means in a practical sense is that you should take that hard course or work in that difficult job or try that position you're not sure you would want to, or even say something to someone that you'd like to meet, but you're a little afraid to. Take that risk because you really can't fail. The corollary to that is that I read in a recent survey of the top successful executives and performance artists around America. They said, what is it that makes you special? What is it that makes you different from the other people who aren't quite as successful? And they said, just a little extra effort. That's all it is, just a little. It's not a lot. And several people talked about, you don't want to do a lot more because you burn yourself out. Just a little more. So if you're asked to write a report, write the report, but if you do a little artwork, put the artwork on the front, the cover. Or if you're asked to stack up tires, put labels on the tire. Just whatever is the little thing that makes it your project. That's what gets you recognized, and that's what will get you catapulted upwards in a company or in making something feel like your own, and that you've made it yourself, giving you satisfaction in doing it. So the first thing is to take risk, and remember, there's no such thing as failure. The second is use your weirdness. I am living example of using your weirdness. It just amazes me. I grew up in a small town very much like Laconia. I never knew anyone in show business. I didn't even know you could stay alive doing something like going for a living. I mean, it's amazing to me that I can do that. What I did is I just kept trying that. I would try it out in comedy clubs, or I would try it out, I would audition for things, and I found that I was better in some things, worse in others. But I used that weirdness, and I consider myself a very happy person. I feel very lucky to have found my weirdness and am using it. Whatever your personal weirdness is, use it. Usually it's the kind of things that people tease you about. It may be that you love rock music, heavy rock music. Well, maybe you should go into a field that involves music, or you love animals, or math, or working with your hands, or just working with people. Explore those with your hobbies and with your work. The people who changed the world are people who embrace their own weirdness. People who are very strange people like Einstein or even Bill Cosby or Lee Iacocca. These people use their weirdness, whatever it was, their own specialness, and that's the gifts they were given. Use those. Now, oftentimes we're ashamed of those things because we want to fit in. Don't be ashamed. Use them. The last is a huge secret that I don't think any adult will have told you, because adults don't want to tell kids this, and that's that there is no such thing as adulthood. Absolutely no such thing as adulthood. Now, somehow in our society there's this myth, maybe put there by sort of insecure adults, that somehow at the magic age of 18 or whatever it is, you have to get serious and your curiosity has to sort of go down. You have to have your eyebrows sort of sewn together and you're very serious. Everything is very, this is, what do you think? You think life, you think this is a joke, young man? You think it's serious. I'm serious to you. I'm serious. No. That somehow you're not supposed to learn and grow like you did as a child. This is not the truth. That adulthood is really just accepting your responsibility. Adults are just responsible. That's it. They're not any less curious than anyone else. The people in the center, go back to you. These are not adults out here. They may be your parents, but they're not adults. We tend to think of them as younger people, as they are fixed and static, and they are like they have been since you were kids. No, they've been changing and growing. You just didn't notice it because you were changing and growing more. You probably taught them a lot about what they know because you helped them learn. Young people always think of adults as having all the answers and that they're sure of themselves. I know I looked up to people because gosh, he's so sure of himself. He knows. He doesn't have those kind of insecurities that I have. Well, that's what got Colonel North in trouble. It's the people who are so sure of themselves, they don't question it, they get into trouble. Here's the reality that hit me at about age 30 is that everyone is bluffing. It's what I call the great bluff. That these parents out here didn't know how to raise you. There was no book that's right or wrong on raising. They didn't. You're grounded, and they'd go, did I do the right thing? I don't know. They obviously they did something right, but they did it just on a moment-to-moment basis, and they weren't sure. They were bluffing. It's okay to have doubts. It's all right to have insecurities. You always will. You'll never become an adult and not have those insecurities. Everyone has them. It's part of being human. You will learn to make the big bluff, and it will help you because you will learn that your talents, your intuition, you'll learn to trust that, and the advice of people around you. They don't have answers, but they have advice, and you can listen to that. Life really is a big gray area. It's a lot grayer than we'd like it to be for you. We'd love to hand you something and say, this is how to do it. We can't do that for you. Let me summarize. Take risk. There's no such thing as failure. Do that little extra bit when you do something. Use your weirdness and dream. Dream, the thing that distinguishes us from animals is that we're able to take our imagination and project it into the future. We can imagine that there would be a school at this place, or that there would be, that maybe you would own a car, or have your own business, or whatever it may be. You can imagine that. That's what makes us human, is the ability to imagine. Dream, daydream. Just let yourself do that. This is the time in your life you should do that. As I mentioned, you are definitely in the top of your pyramid. You're right up on the top looking out at this gray area, and you are supported by the shoulders of your education, your teachers, your friends and family, and your church. Whatever God you choose to worship, and however you choose to worship, that's also your support, your base. These various groups gave you your traditions and your unique perspective and your love. Now, something happened to me a few years ago when John Lennon died, about 10, 11 years ago. And it was on all the papers, all the headlines, the interrupted reports, and the TV was just saturated with John Lennon for a few days. And I was talking to my mother on the phone, and she said, I don't understand this John Lennon stuff. What is going on here? I mean, what? I said, Mom, he was very important to our generation. See, he's not as important to your generation, but it was particularly our generation. She said, so? I said, we're in control now. Our generation suddenly had taken the reins. We were reading the papers. We were watching the news. We were writing the news. We were writing the papers. It will not be long. And I tell you, you can't believe how short. In just 5, 10 years, you'll be taking the reins. You'll be bringing your U2s, or whatever it is that you have, you'll be bringing that into the consciousness of America. The future of all of us rest right here in your head, in your talents and in your intellect, and also in your heart, in your dreams. And I want to speak for all of us in the center section and say, go out there and kick it. Do it. You can. And I promise you one thing. Things will never be the same except for one thing, and that's our love for you. Congratulations.
Mr. Newman, we appreciate that fine, inspiring speech, that speech of humor and vision. The moment is arriving now, ladies and gentlemen, class of 1987. From here on out, the changes are going to go faster, because you will never be the same once you pass through this rite of passage, this coming of age. This is what we do in America. We give out diplomas after 12 years. And it's a signal, it's a flag that the future is ahead and is now ready to be embraced. I stand before you on behalf of the city, on behalf of the people of your community, to tell you that you are truly the treasure of Laconia. The people who sit out here have invested everything into your lives. We haven't had the answers. We haven't had all the answers, but we've had some of the answers. And we've done the very best we could to give you a foundation on which to build. You're going to find a lot of people out there who are very smart, very aggressive, very intelligent, very caught up with the need to succeed, very much afraid of failure. And we know about that, because we were sitting there once before like you. But what we've given you is the best we had, and that's a foundation, so that you can embrace those visions and dreams in a real sense, beyond the abstract, but in a real solid sense. So, Godspeed to you, class of 1987. Best wishes. Our hopes are with you. We're going to stand behind you. We will be that support system that Mr. Newman spoke about.
Kathleen Susan Shumway. Matthew Phillip McLaughlin. Christian Rambert Swinlin. Brian Scott Young. Lisa Ann Routhier. Catherine Marie Bailey. Todd Irving Selleck. Marsha Lorraine Hughes. James William Jaguar. Vaughn Manavon. Aaron Lee Parry. Rosemary Bennett. Joel Ronald Dion. Tina Marie Kelly. James Amy Swamstead. Mary Elizabeth Dussault. Richard James Fortier. Deborah Carol Dussault. Jeffrey Scott Morin. Jessica Joyce Keyser. Christopher Gary Richard Croto.
Oh, look out.
Michelle Lynn Hurley. Jeffrey John DeForge.
Michelle Denise Murgatroyd, Kevin Philip White, Leah Victoria Dearborn, Jonathan Scott Wilkinson, Samantha Lynn Verdon, Ego Jesus Gasteria, Roberta Ann Baldick, Scott Philip Cormier, Laura Lee LeMay, Lee Allen Bailey, Karen Louise Anders, Martin Richard Dion, Wanda Jean Sturgeon, Thomas John Adrignola, Melissa Catherine LaChance, Raymond Howard Lurip Jr., Diane Marie Van Dyne, Armin Lucian Poulin, Donna Marie Joyce, Jeffrey Michael Haynes, Stacy Lynn Paquette, Jeffrey Wayne Druin, Susan Alicia Layton, Christopher Leanne Chapman, Kimberly Lynn Poria, Greg Allen Gagney, Suzanne Annette Sims, Angela Lynn Labrie Wilder, Kevin Dana Kelleher Jr., Rebecca Caroline Kidder, George Guy Bousquet Jr., Kimberly Ann Champagne, Robert Homer Bragg, Sherry Ann Reed, James Douglas Roy, Stacy Vandernoot, William Albert Bechtel, Amy Beth Crandall, Gregory Scott Casanova, Robin Denise Hood, Michael Harrison Donovan, Jana Lee Ebb Barton, Sean Christopher Sullivan, Robin Candace Collins, Carl Richard Jewett, Kimberly Ann Noyes, Wayne Gerard St. Jacques, Robin Beth Harris, Michael Maurice Roy, Shannon Susan Stewart, Tanya Ann Perino, Jennifer Lee Stickney, Anne Marie Sodroni, Cheryl Lynn Twombly, Judy Lee Rollo, Linda Marie Baldick, Lisa Marie Gleason, Charlene Marie Corbin, Rebecca Ann Woodworth, Lisa June Rollins, Gina Lee LaFlamme, Eric Peter Frost, Lori Lee Chamberlain, Frank Albion Melanson, Tracy Lynn Eisner, J. Hurd Davis, Tammy Lee Gerard, Vicki Lynn Durgan, Rodney Paul Yaron, Keith Matthew Downs, Christine Lee Moulton, Matthew Lee Lovely, Lisa Margaret Plant, Jeffrey Scott Melton, Donna Marie Martin, Jeffrey Lynn Chapman, Sue Ling Ing, Rodney Dana Kobe, Lori Jean Andrews, Christopher Gordon Hill, Elizabeth Sarah Shutton, Christopher Scott Tyndall, Jennifer Catherine Richter, Christopher Lawrence Phelps, Michelle Lynn Hilson, Daniel Richard Heath, Lauren Panella, Merrick Dennis Rock, Sheila Ann McDonald, Charles Blair Norwood, Paula Lee Phillips, Christopher Bryson Haddock, Roseanne Pucci, Charles Frank Fletcher, Eileen Margaret Poole, Robert Charles Fay Jr., Michelle Lee Ackley, Brian Michael Quinlan, Sandy Lee Cormier, Jason Dwight Marceau, Christine Ann Archambault, Victor Manuel Infistia, Natalie Ann Bruce, Richard Evans Border, Tanya Heidi Foote, Kevin Patrick Dunleavy, Carrie Joe Wallace, Brian Robert Sage, Deborah May Lines, John Cash Cunningham, Suzanne Marie Bodwin, Timothy Kurt Piper, Susan Darlene Bousquet, Michael Paul Tarling, Sarah Elizabeth Dubois, Michael William Smith, Tracy Lynn Hodgkins, Mark Louise Grover, Lewis, Carrie Ann Ganchi, James Edward Plant, Laura Lee Barry, Scott Charles Sullivan, Tina Lynn Berg, Richard Joseph Johnson, Joan Marie Leonard, Roy Andrew Stockhausen, Elizabeth Lynette Canton, Gail Patricia Lucas. Yvette Mary Berry. Susan Kathleen Gorse. Marianne Tufts. Wendy Dawn Langwitz. Robert George Poulin. Stacy Jean Mortel. Mary Irene Jocks. Bettina Medora Morrison. Karen Marie Churchill. Corrine Ann Folsom. Elizabeth Engel. Colleen Jill Champagne. Monica Ann O'Hara. Let's give the class of 1987.
Go into the world. Work honestly. Love honorably. Find time for those who need you. Find time for yourself. Make friends of your enemies and live in peace. May the blessing of God go with you. Amen.